All right, folks. Today we're going to talk about something that I've written in an email. I don't know if you guys know, I have a daily email that goes out. Who here is on the list? Okay, so if you're not on the list, you go to masterchim.com. It's called the Master Chim letter, and it's just a daily email I send out. I sent out one this morning talking about some of the mistakes, I think, that a lot of people make when training martial arts, specifically when teaching martial arts. Now, when we start doing martial arts with guns and on street corners and in cars and with blades and everything, a lot of people like to use the term combatives, right? Because that's what that industry calls it. It's all the same stuff. Okay? The big thing is it's doing violence, training yourself to become more violent, and also teaching violence in the rawest form that it could be taught. Okay? So I talk a lot about when you're teaching somebody something, it's not about sort of installing information in somebody's head the way you would put like a flash drive in a computer. It's really leading somebody to the information, right? Getting them the access to the information so they can experience it as unencumbered by you as possible. Right? So as a teacher, I don't install info, I lead people to truths, I lead people to info. And when it comes to violence, a lot of people don't really track just how game-changing violence can be. Okay? So the email I wrote this morning, I talked about one of the mistakes that a lot of instructors make in that they teach people to become the fastest zebras, right? So if you think of the sort of cat and mouse dynamic between a zebra and a lion, we know that the zebra, obviously, if one of them is going to be the prey, it's the zebra. And a lot of times, because people don't understand the nature of mindset, the nature of a persona, the nature of an identity where violence is concerned, they think, well, if I'm a zebra and I'm going to get eaten by a lion, if I could change anything in the world, I'll just become a faster zebra. And at no point do they ever think, well, maybe I should be a lion and not a zebra. And that's the change that I think a lot of people, when they're exposed to my content here, training at the Jungle Gym, or any of the stuff that I put out online, that is one of the main things that I'm trying to push forward in the beginning, right? So when it comes to our training, we have to ask ourselves, are we training to get away? Well, sure, we're training to get away if getting away is the best possible solution. If you're with your child or your younger sibling and you're attacked and they get grabbed, would you get away then? Well, obviously not. Well, it doesn't take much for me to design a very realistic scenario, a very common scenario, where the majority of people's martial arts training is absolutely useless. Right? So I remember when I became a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, contrary to what I'm wearing now. Right? I got a black belt a little over 10 years ago. I was in Abu Dhabi. I was a professional MMA fighter. I've trained with some of the best of the best. I've had successful students who've gone from never training at all to professional fighters, never training at all to becoming black belts. So I was a jiu-jitsu guy, if there was a jiu-jitsu guy. Well, it didn't take much for me to ask myself, well, what am I going to do? Let's say I'm with my wife, and she and I had one or two kids at the time. I think Kaizen was born, not Kaiden yet. And I was starting to ask myself, well, what am I going to do if I'm with my wife and kids and we're in a parking lot, right, out of the supermarket, and we get approached by two guys? What's the jiu-jitsu move for that? Let's say I get approached by one guy and he has a gun. What's the jiu-jitsu move for that? He has a knife. What's the jiu-jitsu move for that? Right? So a lot of times what winds up happening is people don't do the thinking necessary to really look at violence for what it is. We don't get to choose our rules when we're probably going to use the stuff that we train every single day. Now, sure, we have tournaments we can go to. We have, training every day that we do, and we're rolling and we're tapping and we're fighting hard and all this stuff. But understand, if you are going to tell yourself that the only time you're ever going to use this is here, then you're fine. But a lot of us, a lot of people that train martial arts in general, you're telling yourselves that what you're doing here is going to help you out there. And out there are lions. Out there, it's not the sort of zebra club that you can get away with having here. So, my challenge to you, my challenge to anybody that trains with me, anybody that listens to anything that I'm saying and putting out there, is to ask yourself, are you training to be a faster zebra? My advice, first be a lion, then be a better one. Understand the slow, dumb, uncoordinated, out-of-shape lion still doesn't get eaten by the zebra. But you could be the fastest, most impressive zebra on the plains and still get eaten by a dumb old lion. So being a fast zebra is not what we should be doing. Become a lion.